Chapter 6b, Deep Space. When I really need you, Ven, I know you'll be there. Terra thought back on what he'd said to Ven. The path he was about to embark upon would take him in a different direction from Ven. No, from Ven and Aqua both. His heart twinged with worry. If so, then his farewell with Ven might have been for good. He brought his Keyblade glider to a halt. From beneath his armor, he pulled out the wayfinder charm he had received from Aqua. He must be crazy to still be holding on to his connection with them after parting with them the way he had. Aqua had spied on him under orders from Master Ericus. Neither the Master nor Aqua trusted him. His chest ached. All of that was precisely why he had followed Master Xehanort's instructions to seek a balance of light and dark, and defeat Vanitas to that end. That ought to be his next goal, but those doubts just wouldn't go away. Terra tightened his hold on the Wayfinder charm, then noticed a strange scene before him. All the way out here? His breath caught in his throat as he spotted the mob of unversed floating in the interworld passage. What looked like more than 100 mushroom-shaped monsters bobbed in space. Terra repeatedly rammed his Keyblade through the horde, extinguishing their evil. There were so many, it seemed there was no end to them. What had happened here? Vanitas needed to go down, and soon. When there were about 30 or so unversed left, a gigantic shadow crept up behind Terra as he plowed into the throng. Just 10 more. Terra finished off the last of the pack. And then, space-time itself warped thanks to the gravitational force of a massive spaceship. Terra and his Keyblade were sucked into the spacefaring hulk. Small rooms with large doors of hard glass stood all in a row in the hushed Turo prison block. Terra had been laid out on a bed inside one of them. 2 sets of footsteps broke the silence. Is he the one? Terra heard a woman ask.
Yes, Grand Councilwoman. I've confined him until we can determine who he is,
the man replied. Who did these voices belong to? Terra stirred on the cold bed. He thought he heard some sort of commotion.
Take cover! Leave it to me to handle these fiends.
The man shouted, pulling Terra out of his reverie. He glanced out through the glass.
Unversed!
There were 2 figures surrounded by a pack of unversed. The masculine-looking one, Captain Gontu, battled the creatures with a gun in one hand.
Whatever you are, you're under arrest. Eventually.
Gontu fled from the passage while shielding his companion, the Grand Councilwoman. Opening the glass door with his Keyblade, Terra rushed out into the corridor to find his path blocked by the unversed.
I'll give you a fight.
The beasts fell easily to Terra's Keyblade. Their numbers weren't anything to bat an eye at compared to the swarm he had just fought. After doing away with several of them, Terra paused for a breath.
Very impressive display.
Turning at the voice, Terra found a solitary figure watching him through the glass of a cramped cell, apparently locked up just as he had been. Judging by the horizontal stripes on his clothes, he was likely a prisoner. When Terra made to walk off, the voice called after him.
Wait, you help! I have been imprisoned on ridiculous charges.
Ridiculous charges? That made it difficult to leave him.
I am innocent scientist who created galaxy's most destructive, constructive species of all time. Why, my experiment could annihilate creatures you fought so hard.
A species that could oppose the unversed? Was that even possible to create?
He's bulletproof, fireproof, and can think faster than supercomputer. He can see in the dark and move objects 3,000 times his rather diminutive size.
The prisoner rattled off in one breath, turning away from Terra.
And for reasons preposterous, the Federation Council fears him. They take him away from me and throw me in small, stuffy, rather badly lit cell.
Because he's so powerful?
Exactly. Everyone always gets antsy and pantses when somebody more powerful is in the neighborhood. You understand, perhaps?
It reminded Terra of something Master Xehanort had said.
You are the one who shows the true mark of mastery, but he refuses to see it, and I know why. It is because he fears you.
Being alienated because you were strong, Terra could sympathize.
We must make to rescue him, or he'll be banished to far reaches of space. Okay then, take me to him.
Terra approached and held out his Keyblade toward the door of the cell, undoing the electronic lock. Its occupant walked out and said to Terra,
Experiment 626.
The words were unfamiliar to him.
His name I give to adorable fluffy creature you are helping for rescue, and I am genius scientist who created him, Dr. Jumba. I'm Terra. Pleasure is all ours. 626 is this way. Hurry!
The two of them left the prison block. Beyond the rather large room was a small circular chamber. A device was installed in its center.
What type of world is this? Currently we are on planet Turo. We take teleporter to Durgan prison transport ship in 626. Okay.
So that big ship had sucked him up and brought him here to this planet.
Now, this way.
With the help of the teleporter, they infiltrated the ship. When they tried to proceed further, they found the way blocked by unversed.
They're here too.
Putting Jumba behind him, Terra started cutting his way through the unversed until he realized it would probably be better for his companion to run than get caught up in a drawn-out battle.
Which way to his containment pod? Over here. Let's go.
Terra dashed into another chamber with Jumba, but the ship corridor leading to the containment pod was lousy with unversed too.
Why are there so many creatures?
Jumba cocked his head in puzzlement.
We don't have time to worry about that now,
Terra urged. He ran down the passageway, taking down unversed along the way.
Wait.
Terra noticed Jumba fiddling with something that looked like an electronic lock next to the door.
I'll open it.
He raised his keyblade to the lock, and it silently opened. Terra and Jumba quickly slid into the room.
This is...
In the middle of the chamber was something resembling a small glass capsule between two mechanical arms in the ceiling, apparently protecting it, and within the capsule was a growling blue creature with 4 arms, about the same size as a human child. Experiment 626.
Amazing, is he not? Such tremendous power in such a itty-bitty package.
Jumba pointed out his creation to Terra.
Truly, he is the one and the only, the mightiest creature in all of galaxy, and his only singular instinct, to destroy everything he touches. See?
Jumba twisted around the capsule and undid the lock. With the capsule containing him gone, 626 scanned the surroundings in surprise before springing onto Terra's shoulder.
What?
After scampering all over Terra's body for a moment, Experiment 626 leaped away and scampered up the wall. Clutched in one of its paws was Terra's wayfinder charm.
When did you... Give it back!
As Terra reached out for Experiment 626, Jumba remarked,
Too late. Is already marked for destruction. No, stop! My friend gave me that!
Feeling his chest tighten, Terra yelled at Experiment 626, and something occurred to him.
My friend gave me that,
he'd said. Did he believe their connection was unbroken after all? Experiment 626 stared at the amulet while Terra hesitated.
Friend, are you joking?
Jumba guffawed.
Such concept is totally lost on 626.
Experiment 626 gazed intently at the pendant for a bit, before tossing it aside and scurrying off, as if something else had caught its attention. Terra picked up the amulet that had fallen to the floor.
An unbreakable connection.
He never would have expected something like this to show him how he really felt. He'd been too fixated on his mission and the power to accomplish it, and that was the source of his misgivings. What his heart truly yearned for was that bond with his friends. He turned to Jumba.
That experiment of yours, you sure about him? Maybe in his heart he wants friends just like the rest of us. Impossible! Psh! He has no actual feelings, only destructive instincts I have carefully chosen for him. Or perhaps you need another demonstration of my evil geniusness.
Jumba removed a small shiny green ball from his pocket and put it in a flask of liquid. As the orb in the flask was engulfed in light, a golden creature that bore a strong resemblance to Experiment 626 popped out.
Behold, one of my other 625 creations, Experiment 221.
After jumping around the room for a bit, Experiment 221 suddenly shot an arc of electricity at Terra. He wasn't really in the mood to fight, but if the creature was attacking, he didn't have a whole lot of options. After scoping out the situation, Terra edged up to Experiment 221 with Keyblade in hand to accept the challenge. Nimbly avoiding the Keyblade, Experiment 221 slid toward the core at the center, between the 2 arms where Experiment 626's capsule had been, and the arms became blasters firing red balls at Terra.
Guess I'll have to take those out first.
He leaped upward and hammered the blasters repeatedly in mid-air with his Keyblade. After a bit of a struggle, the arms finally ceased functioning. Experiment 221 was then ejected from its hiding place.
Sorry about this.
Terra grunted as he swung the Keyblade before he could figure out what happened. The powerful blow stopped Experiment 221 in its tracks and sent it tumbling to the floor, where it transformed back into the green ball from before.
Oh, you'll be all right, little one.
Behind Jumba, who was on his hands and knees in obvious distress, Experiment 626 appeared.
What is it? Why have you returned?
Jumba was perplexed. Experiment 626 babbled incomprehensibly at the scientist, but Terra had a feeling he understood what it was trying to say. He stepped closer.
Maybe he's wondering what a friend is.
Ridiculous! Terra ignored Jumba and stood before Experiment 626.
My name is Terra.
Terra.
Experiment 626 tilted his head as it repeated the name.
Yes, I can't explain friendship. When you feel it, you'll know it,
Terra advised, until Jumba cut him off.
Not if I have any say in matter. You are only meant to think about what it is you will destroy next. Now, I fix what is wrong with you.
Jumba ordered, but Experiment 626 growled and yelped in protest. Just then, the security alarm went off, and the light in the room began flashing red.
Red alert. Red alert. Experiment 626 and 2 prisoners have escaped from the cell bay. Security, locate the fugitives immediately. Repeat, Experiment 626 and...
Though it was debatable whether it understood the announcement, Experiment 626 left the room.
Not so fast!
Jumba went after him. Though Terra was worried about Experiment 626, he decided against pursuing the creature. Now alone, Terra returned to his senses and noticed the wayfinder charm he still had in his hand.
Then, Aqua, are we still connected? No, I don't have to think about it. Just feel it in my heart. We might be walking separate paths now, but our friendship is still there. I want to trust in that, but why can't I be sure?
Terra's grip on the amulet tightened. He had to track down Vanitas soon. After a pause, Terra bid farewell to this world. A massive horde of unversed trailed after Vanitas like a parade. He strutted through the ship, then gave a big stretch, bored out of his mind.
Red alert! Red alert! Experiment 626 and 2 prisoners have escaped from the cell bay. Security, locate the fugitives immediately. Repeat, Experiment 626 and...
Vanitas snorted derisively at the announcement and flashing red lights. He knew Terra had already snuck into this world. While Vanitas had no idea where he was or what he was up to, Terra didn't interest him much, not to mention he was Master Xehanort's anyway.
Now then, what to do?
Vanitas murmured, then spotted a small creature up ahead that seemed to be putting together some junk. The creature, Experiment 626, noted Vanitas and bared its teeth at him with a snarl. Intrigued, he reached out for Experiment 626's precious garbage.
What do we have here?
Experiment 626 leaped away as the boy tried to snatch the object. Now, with a little more distance between them, the experiment growled again. The garbage was actually a bunch of scrap pieced together in a rough approximation of a flower. Vanitas remembered that Ventus had something similar. This little critter must have made its own version for whatever reason. And the fact that it actually made Vanitas feel something was just more proof that he and Ventus were connected.
This is ridiculous.
Vanitas turned his back on Experiment 626 and walked off. The next place Aqua visited after departing Disney Town was the interior of a gigantic ship traveling through the lanes between. This was deep space. Was Terra in this world? The view beyond the colossal window was a little different from usual. Aqua abruptly felt the arrival of something behind her and spun around. Is there any worlds they haven't found? Aqua quickly readied her Keyblade and began fighting them. This world was rampant with unversed too. Anxiety raced through Aqua's chest as she disposed of the beasts one after the other. She didn't know why the unversed existed, but seeing this many varieties meant there was something very wrong in this world. Is that all of them? Aqua muttered upon defeating the last of the unversed, at least as far as she could tell. She put away her Keyblade and noticed something lying in the middle of the room. What she scooped up was an object with 5 petals of metal scrap. The shape was very familiar to her. Just then, a blue shadow swept in front of her and snatched away the object. Instinctively bringing up her Keyblade, Aqua found a blue small creature with 4 arms before her. The creature had the object in its paws, snarling at her menacingly. "Tell me, where did you get that?" she asked, and the creature seemed to notice something. Is it looking at my Keyblade? Maybe it met Terra or Ven. Aqua was about to ask when a masculine voice thundered.
"Come out, you little trog!"
Hearing the voice, the blue critter leaped away and scampered off, through what looked like a vent in the ceiling. Wait! When Aqua tried to give chase, a huge man, Gontu, blocked her path.
You there! Has Experiment 626 passed through this area?
Experiment what? Was that the name of that blue creature? The man pressed further when she tilted her head in puzzlement.
Don't be dense. Dr. Jumba Jukiba's genetic abomination. 626. Small, blue, vicious.
The creature she saw just now hadn't appeared vicious in the slightest.
Do you know something?
Yes, he's in the ventilation system. Aqua pointed to the vent honestly.
Blast! He got away again.
Gontu grumbled, seeming near the end of his rope. He took a step to return to the hunt, but then he stopped.
Hold it right there. Why don't I know you? What section are you from?
She didn't know what to tell him.
Trying to stow away, are we? Come with me.
What should I do? Just run? As Aqua deliberated, she heard a woman's voice.
What is the meaning of this? Captain Gontu, did I not order you to apprehend the fugitives immediately?
They were in a room off the passage. There was an array of large computers. This must be some sort of control room.
Yes, and I will have them in custody soon. They'd be locked up already if those wretched monsters would just... if I hadn't uncovered this potential stowaway.
This woman he called the Grand Councilwoman seemed much more reasonable than Gontu. Aqua stepped toward her. I wasn't trying to sneak on board. My name is Aqua, and those monsters, I followed them here. Please, I can handle this threat. Just give me a chance. Let me show you. The weapon I carry is the only one that can stop them, she rapidly explained. The Grand Councilwoman appeared surprised for a moment, then asked Gontu a question.
Our weapons are of no use against them. Is this true? Well, we haven't explored all our options,
Gontu replied unhappily.
Nor do we have time to.
The Grand Councilwoman interrupted, eyeing Aqua.
We are fortunate you are here, Aqua, she said to her. Your assistance would be most welcome. But Grand Councilwoman, how can you honestly believe what this stowaway says?
Gontu interjected.
I think you'll find that I can. We have a crisis. Jumba and 626 remain at large, and these monsters are obstructing attempts to apprehend them. Or did I mishear your latest excuse as to why you've again failed to carry out your duties, Captain?
The Grand Councilwoman admonished him before returning her attention to Aqua.
Will you help us?
Of course. Defeating them is my job. It's what I do best, ma'am. Aqua nodded resolutely.
Then might I make one other request? Should you happen upon our fugitives, please do whatever you can to apprehend them intact.
The Grand Councilwoman turned away, and an image appeared on the monitor in front of her. The blue creature from before, Experiment 626, and another man were on it.
Those monsters are keeping us from conducting our search in a satisfactory manner.
You want me to capture Dr. Jumba in Experiment 626?
But you can't just... That's my job.
The Grand Councilwoman again shook her head.
You had your chance, Captain Gontu. Now you will stand down and await orders.
Gontu grumbled incoherently.
We will monitor the location of the monsters and keep you apprised. Thank you for your help, Aqua.
Of course. After replying to the Grand Councilwoman, Aqua passed by the furiously trembling Gontu and set off to exterminate the unversed. What concerned her most was that object in Experiment 626's paws. She'd know that shape anywhere. Did that wayfinder facsimile mean Terra or Ven was somewhere in this world? Aqua proceeded through the vessel, defeating any unversed that reared their heads. After passing by several rooms, she arrived at a small round chamber. There was a device in the center of the room with a platform just big enough for a single person. When she pressed the activation switch next to it, Aqua instantly warped to another chamber. Beyond the door were many small rooms in rows. As she walked in, there was Experiment 626. The creature seemed to be searching for something, but the appearance of unversed cut its efforts short. Look out! Aqua did away with the unversed around 626 with a sweep of her keyblade. Aqua did away with the unversed around Experiment 626 with the sweep of her keyblade. The little creature peered up at her. You must be Experiment 626. I have orders to take you in, she told it. Terra, it replied. What? She asked, but Experiment 626 just scuttled off. I think you and I need to talk. Aqua tried to get it to stop as she gave chase, only to have more unversed appear and block the way. It seemed any progress would happen after she dealt with them. But first things first, she muttered. In front of Aqua, Experiment 626 bared its fangs and pounced. Aqua joined it, charging into the pack and disposed of them one after the other. From what she could see from the corner of her eye, Experiment 626 was quite formidable. An unversed lunged at her from behind while she was distracted by Experiment 626. Ugh! With a snarl, Experiment 626 bounded through the air, harried the unversed with its sharp claws, and landed as if nothing had happened. Thanks, I owe you. Aqua expressed her gratitude, but the little guy just began its search again. When Aqua finished off the final unversed, she walked up to Experiment 626. What is it you're looking for? She asked. Experiment 626 turned back and paused in thought for a moment.
Terra!
Terra's name again. But then it scampered off, just like before. Wait, I need to ask you. 626 scuttled up a pillar and disappeared without even turning back. Aqua had no choice but to go after him again. She left the large chamber and took the teleporter back to the ship. Aqua's foot bumped against something small as she made her way back toward the Grand Councilwoman to debrief and get more information. It was that makeshift wayfinder she had seen during her initial encounter with Experiment 626. Aqua picked it up. Experiment 626 had seemed to value it highly, and it had mentioned Terra's name. What exactly did it know? Aqua stepped into the command room with the object in hand. Your Highness.
Dr. Jumba and Experiment 626 have been sighted, said the Grand Councilwoman. At that time, the two of them were wandering around the launch deck. Would you see that they're secured?
Aqua lowered her gaze for a moment, then made up her mind to ask, is Experiment 626 really that dangerous of a creature? It didn't seem that way to her at all. 626 had helped her battle the unversed.
We assume so.
The Grand Councilwoman's response was brief and to the point. Plus, it didn't seem that she was lying. All right then, I'll head over there now. Aqua departed for the launch deck with object in hand. At the launch deck, she found who she assumed to be Dr. Jumba conversing with Experiment 626.
It is time to give up. Then I will fix abnormality and ridiculous behavior stops.
But Experiment 626 growled defiantly. Hold it right there! Dr. Jumba, Experiment 626! I've been authorized to take you into custody, she called. The duo turned toward Aqua.
Terra!
Experiment 626 reacted to the object in Aqua's hand. Immediately after, he snatched the item away from her with a swift motion. So it really does belong to you, she said as it rubbed the object against its cheek in obvious pleasure. But where have you seen that shape? Jumba answered her question instead.
His copy he made of good luck charm that boy Terra showed to him. Terra said friend gave him charm, was very protective of it.
So Terra was here. He really said that to you? She asked.
Yes.
Jumba nodded in affirmation. Relief filled her chest. Terra still felt their bond.
And now, because of Terra and his little bubble, my genius creation is hesitating in his genetically programmed destructive instincts. Just look at them.
As Jumba elaborated, a beam of light struck near Experiment 626's feet and damaged the floor. What are you doing? Our orders are to capture them alive, Aqua shouted.
And I've decided to take a new approach,
Gantu replied, holding a blaster.
All right, you two. Any last words before I blast you into a million pieces?
Experiment 626 angrily yelled back at the captain, using some words Aqua couldn't understand.
I'm just big-boned. Freeze!
Gantu drove Experiment 626 up against a wall. Stop it! Aqua came running up with her keyblade, but Gantu turned toward her and barked.
I warned you. Stay out of it.
This was unusual for him. I guess we have to do this the hard way, Aqua said, resigned. Experiment 626 let out a roar, and Gantu chose that moment to fire off several beams in rapid succession. Aqua and 626 charged toward Gantu at nearly the same time. Experiment 626 darted around him and got a few swipes in, while Aqua leaped upward with her keyblade to go on the attack. She could sense a connection building between her and Experiment 626 as they fought together. Was this their bond? They had only just met, but she could feel something between her and 626. Aqua landed the final strike to Gantu alongside Experiment 626. Gantu dropped to a knee.
I'm not done with you yet.
However, a voice interjected.
Enough!
It was the Grand Councilwoman.
I observed everything on the monitor.
However, the Grand Councilwoman walked right by Gantu as he tried to explain and stopped before Aqua.
You've been of great service, Aqua. Thank you. Captain Gantu, escort 626 to the asteroid to which he's been banished. When you return, you're back on patrol. Not patrol!
Gantu sagged dejectedly. The Grand Councilwoman then began to walk off, accompanied by Dr. Jumba and Experiment 626. Please, Your Highness, would you consider sparing Experiment 626? Aqua asked the Grand Councilwoman's back.
Spare him? He's an extremely dangerous creature. I cannot release such a menace.
She stopped and turned around at Aqua's request. But it seems to me he's at least trying to make friends. And dangerous or not, I really believe he can succeed.
Very well, Aqua. If he behaves himself, I will consider shortening his exile.
Thank you, ma'am. Aqua bowed to the Grand Councilwoman, then walked up to Experiment 626 and knelt down. She placed her hand on the object he was holding. I like the charm you made. Do you think my circle of friends could become part of yours? Experiment 626 looked up at Aqua with a puzzled expression. My name is Aqua. My friends are Terra and Ventus.
Aqua. Friend. Terra. Then.
Aqua studied Experiment 626 for a moment, then smiled and stood up. Still carrying his trinket, Experiment 626 walked toward the Grand Councilwoman and Gantu. Aqua was sure the Grand Councilwoman would keep up her promise. Her chest grew warm. Experiment 626 had helped assure her of her bond to Terra. Terra will be okay. We're connected after all. And with that, Aqua put deep space behind her. What kind of friends would he make in the next world? First Lee, then Herc, and then Huey, Dewey, and Louie. I've made so many friends today. Then remembered the people he had met in the previous worlds as he raced along on his Keyblade glider. And then there was the wayfinder in his pocket. Maybe he just wanted more and more friends because Terra and Aqua had been there with him all along. Something large and white approached Ven from behind. Huh? What's that? What slid by was an unversed! The big, jellyfish-shaped unversed, Metamorphosis, swam leisurely through the lanes between. Tentacles unfurled in 3 directions from its belly-shaped body and poised in wait for Ven. Here I come! He accelerated his Keyblade and rammed into Metamorphosis as hard as he could, and it flapped off in escape. Wait! Quite a ways ahead of the unversed and its pursuer was a vessel even more massive than the creature. Trying to catch a ride, huh? Ven stayed hot on its tail for a good while. But he was ultimately unable to catch up before it disappeared into the colossal ship, leaving him to barge in right after it. Around that time, Experiment 626 had been reconfined in the containment pod. Security was heavier than before, with 626 restrained inside a capsule installed between blasters protruding like 2 arms from the ceiling.
Now don't get any more ideas,
Gantu stated forcefully as he looked up at Experiment 626. The creature growled at him. At that moment, the alarm sounded.
An intruder!
Gantu shot another hard look at Experiment 626 and said,
All right, you. Don't get any funny ideas.
With that, he quickly left the containment pod. Now that he was alone, Experiment 626 spat on the floor. The blasters locked onto his DNA, honed their sights and attacked the glob of spittle. The impact broke the wall. Then, Experiment 626 used his strength to escape from his restraints. Dodging the series of beams from the blasters, he bolted from the containment pod. The blaring alarms inside the ship sure made everything tense. Ven didn't know if it was himself or the unversed he was after that had triggered it.
So you're the intruder. Identify yourself.
Having been classified as a trespasser, Ven turned around to see a mountain of a man, Gantu, towering over him with a ray gun in one hand. My name is Ventus. The monster I was chasing boarded your ship.
Nice try. If there was another intruder aboard, we'd have detected it.
Ven's honesty did him no good. This guy wasn't going to listen either way. But then the alarm sounded again. Intruder in the machinery bay! We lost control of the engines! It's some kind of monster!
Now you tell me.
Gontu turned away from Ven and took off in a hurry.
Stay right there. I have lots of unpleasant questions to ask you.
Despite Gontu's instructions, Ven wasn't about to just sit around and wait. It's probably my fault it ended up on the ship at all, Ven thought. He started after Gontu, but then a blue creature jumped out in front of him. The blue creature, Experiment 626, regarded Ven, then spoke very slowly.
Ven, Terra, Aqua.
Despite being in the midst of an emergency, the startled Ven asked this little newcomer, "What? You know Terra and Aqua?" Experiment 626 quickly showed him an item that looked just like a wayfinder charm.
Friend, circle.
Hey, is that a wayfinder? Ven approached 626 to see it closer. Just then, the ship rumbled with a loud noise.
The engines are under too much stress. We're risking an explosion.
An extremely anxious voice resounded from the ship-wide announcement system. What am I doing? There's no time! Ven began to run, and Experiment 626 tagged along. Ven noticed and stopped. Turning back, he bent down and told him, "No, you need to stay here. It's too dangerous." He took off again. Now alone, Experiment 626 looked quietly at the object. It was his treasure, the charm he'd made in imitation of the one Terra had also valued so highly. Aqua and Ven. The two words were the names of some important people Terra had taught him about, but Ven had gone on ahead. Friends. Circle. A flash from a blaster struck Experiment 626 in the paw as he started walking. 626 was fine even after the impact sent him flying, but the object he had been holding broke into pieces.
I don't know how you did it, but you got away again.
It was Gontu. Experiment 626 growled.
You haven't fooled me. You can bat your eyes all you want at the Grand Councilwoman so she'll reconsider your sentence, but I see you for what you really are, an abomination that's only instinct is to destroy everything it touches.
Gontu approached Experiment 626, firing his blaster. 626 leaped out of the way and collided hard with the wall. Part of it crumbled.
You!
As Gontu fired a barrage, Experiment 626 started to attack, but then disappeared into the hole in the wall with a huge leap. Ven arrived at the machinery bay, defeating smaller unversed as he went. The target of his pursuit, Metamorphosis, was circling the engine there. End of the line! Ven brought his keyblade up into a fighting stance, only for the ceiling to explode with a tremendous noise. And Experiment 626 plopped down. Before them, Metamorphosis watched the pair from above, undulating its jellyfish-like bell. Hey, you shouldn't be here! Experiment 626 merely yapped as if he couldn't hear Ven. Something seemed strange. What is it? 626 made even more of a fuss, but Ven didn't have time to deal with him just then. Metamorphosis had latched onto the engine, dimming all the lights in the ship. Get off there! Ven leaped and launched an aerial attack against the unversed. Experiment 626 followed suit. Once Metamorphosis was separated from the engine, the lights returned to normal. The two would need to keep it safe during the battle. Something was still off about Experiment 626, but he at least seemed to recognize Metamorphosis as the enemy. Let's do this! Ven hurled his keyblade at the unversed, damaging it. But the thing wasn't going down that easy. Experiment 626 jumped in and rammed into Metamorphosis. Nice one! Next, Ven dashed in and dealt another blow. Perhaps Experiment 626 had hit it harder than he thought, because their foe finally ceased moving. When 626 followed up with a succession of laser blasts, Metamorphosis finally gave up the ghost. You're pretty tough. Experiment 626 continued snarling, completely unaware of Ven's approach. He fired off beams into space. It's over! Cut it out! 626 still didn't calm down. Ven grabbed him from behind to try and make him be still, but the little creature whacked him away. Whoa! At Ven's cries he went sailing through the air, Experiment 626 quieted down. The growling ceased. What's gotten into you? His big ears dropping, Experiment 626 showed Ven the broken item as the boy sat up. I see. Your wayfinder broke. Well, don't worry. Friendship's more than an object. Right. Friendship wasn't something you could hold in your hand. It was all around you.
Friendship circle?
Yeah! Experiment 626 seemed to grin at Ven's affirmation.
Don't let the little mimic fool you. You saw for yourself what kind of monster that thing is. All it knows how to do is hurt and destroy.
Monster? He helped me stop the monster! Ven shouted as he shielded Experiment 626 from Gontu's gun.
You must have triggered some sort of mutation hidden in the little freak's genetic coding.
Ven! Friend! This time, Experiment 626's meaning was clear. That's right! We're friends! Ven responded with a smile. Gontu turned his weapon on Ven.
Better say your goodbyes now then, because 626 is about to be destroyed.
As soon as the words were out of Gontu's mouth, Experiment 626 pounced on his face. He then bounded away from the stunned captain and started babbling. Okay! Ven replied, then sprinted after the fleeing Experiment 626.
Sound the alert! Prisoners on the loose! Don't let them get away!
Gontu shouted at their backs. He didn't try to catch them, though. Experiment 626 was headed for the launch deck. He climbed into one of the several small craft parked there. Come on! Ven put on his armor and hopped onto his Keyblade glider. The two of them shot out into space at nearly the same time, but a group of fighters was immediately on 626's tail. Where are we going? Asked Ven when he drew near 626's ship. The little guy said something back, but Ven didn't understand. Their pursuers were tightening the net around them. Experiment 626 hurriedly pulled a switch in the cockpit. Hyperdrive has been activated. System charging. Warning. Guidance is not functional. Navigation failure. Do not engage hyperdrive. The voice coming from the cockpit traveled via the radio waves and reached the ships chasing them.
Break formation! Get clear!
The ships rapidly dispersed. What is it? What's going on? Ven called to Experiment 626, but the creature just shook his head and yelled. Ven got nearer to try and hear him better, but the ship suddenly blasted off in a burst of light. The shockwave sent Ven and his Keyblade flying. Run! Experiment 626 shouted, and then they were both gone.